You're listening to the Hour of the Time. I'm William Cooper. Well, folks, things are getting hot here. Apparently, we are ruffling someone's feathers. I'm not going to tell you what's going on, but I will tell you this. I'm sitting here with a 9mm pistol by my side, and we have taken steps to protect the family. Last night, I told you that the seeds are still open. $48 for listeners and $40 for CAGI members. And we also brought out two other offers. The pantry, 3 months for one person, or 1.5 months for two people. It's 4 cases. Shipping weight is 87 pounds. Remember, whenever you order this stuff, you pay freight upon delivery. The retail price of the pantry unit, 3 months for one person, is $380. $380. For listeners to the Hour of the Time, the price is $300, and for CAGI members, $290. Let me tell you that again. The retail price is $380. For listeners to the Hour of the Time, the price is $300. For CAGI members, $290. We also did the emergency unit. We'll feed one person for 1 month. The retail price is $213, and I believe we brought it down to $290 for listeners and $280 for CAGI members. So that will remain open as long as we are doing the reruns while we are moving into the new research center, folks, and make sure that you take advantage of it. The seeds are a fantastic bargain. These other two offers are also fantastic bargains. To feed one person for 3 months for $300 or $290, dehydrated food is nitrogen packed in enameled cans, is a fantastic bargain. If you can find it cheaper somewhere else, I recommend that you get it. But let us know where it's cheaper and send us their official price list so that we can compare. And anytime you can do anything like that, we'll always try and see what we can do. But we're rock bottom as it is. So take advantage of it. The address is Post Office Box 1420, Sholo, spelled SHOWLOW, Arizona, 85901. That's P.O. Box 1420, Sholo, Arizona, 85901. If you listen at the end of this broadcast, the address will be repeated again. Please make all checks or money orders out to Annie, A-N-N-I-E. Don't go away, folks. We'll be right back.
Blue-eyed son, oh, where have you been, my darling young one? I've stumbled on the side of 12 misty mountains. I've walked and I've crawled on 6 crooked highways. I've stepped in the middle of 7 sad forests. I've been out in front of a dozen dead oceans. I've been 10,000 miles in the mouth of a graveyard. And it's hard, it's hard, it's hard, it's hard.
federal authorities are investigating Clinton's involvement in these loans. The April 3rd, 1986 Small Business Administration loan by Capital Management for $300,000 to Mrs. McDougal, routed to her company, Master Marketing. $110,000 of this money is believed to have been routed into Whitewater. The loan, of course, ladies and gentlemen, was never repaid. A February 28, 1986 SBA loan by Capital Management for $150,000 to Castle Sewer and Water, which involves Tucker and others, also never repaid. Castle Sewer and Water also defaulted on more than $860,000 in Madison loans. Again, never repaid. An October 3rd, 1987 SBA loan by Capital Management for $150,000 to South Loop Construction Corporation, Tucker's company. Guess what? Never repaid. A February 21st, 1986 SBA loan by Capital Management for $65,000 to the Communications Company in Fayetteville, Arkansas, owned by Steve Smith, Clinton's former aide. The firm's purpose was to manage Democratic political campaign. Now, who could that be? It declared bankruptcy in 1992 and defaulted on the loan. Again, never repaid. It was this same Mr. Smith who approved Kingston Bank's $30,000 loan to Hillary that the FDIC demanded the Clintons repay, and it was repaid, but with another loan. A January 10, 1986 SBA loan by Capital Management for $149,000 to Campobello Realty, James McDougal's and Chris Wade's venture, never repaid. These SBA loans were supposed to go to minority business owners who could not obtain financial and other assistance, but Clinton's officials required them to use the money, and they leased the space from McDougal. This was done, folks, at a cost of more than $5,300 a month for 2 years, according to federal law enforcement sources. Investigators want to know whether the lease was inflated to allow for the $2,000 a month retainer for Mrs. Clinton. 5 other building owners had submitted lower bids to house the ADFA in better locations, but they were passed over at the insistence of Bill Clinton for McDougal. Remember, folks, this comes from the research of CAGI members, the research of myself, William Cooper, and a man named Nick Guarino. Now we come to some of the real meat of the matter, the Clintons and their bond and drug dealers. The Clintons' association with bond and drug dealer Dan Lassiter began in 1979 at the Oaklawn Racetrack in Hot Springs, Arkansas, where Bill's mother, Mrs. Kelly, had a box next to his. Lassiter was the founder of the Ponderosa Steakhouse chain. He was very wealthy by the time he met Mrs. Kelly and Clinton's half-brother, Roger. The racetrack friendship soon blossomed into an introduction to Clinton, who was trying to regain the governor's mansion after losing the November '79 election and having money troubles. It was his association with the Clintons that spurred him to open a bond trading firm. Lassiter gave Roger Clinton a job and Bill Clinton major campaign contributions. Bill added Lassiter and Company to the exclusive list of firms eligible to underwrite state bond issues. This classification generated millions in dollars of business for the firm. Lassiter contributed huge sums to Clinton's ongoing political campaigns, sponsored lavish drug parties at his office, paid off Roger Clinton's drug debts, encouraged his staff to donate to Clinton, promising higher commissions to compensate them for their expense, and frequently flew Bill around the country in his private jet. Clinton, dear listeners, for his part, sent Lassiter lucrative bond contracts for the state of Arkansas. Bond issues were one of Clinton's main vehicles for patronage and largesse for him and his cronies. Most of these bonds were issued through the Arkansas Development Finance Authority, which bundled local bond issues to make them more attractive to buyers. ADFA was created in 1985 by Mr. Clinton to expand the state's authority to issue tax-exempt bonds to develop property in Arkansas. investment bankers in the state, and a former ADFA official involved in government bond contracts say it was common knowledge that companies headed by political supporters of Mr. Clinton received favored status for government awards, including business loans through ADFA bond issues. In a letter to the FBI, the former official said that many of the ADFA's bond sales were intended, quote, as political favors or repayments for campaign support, unquote. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, if you wanted an ADFA bond issue, you played ball with Bill Clinton, and some of your money had better go into his campaign fund. These ADFA bonds were the height of cronyism. Clinton and his friends were able to use them to loot over $1 billion with a B, and now we're getting to the real money, $1 billion with a B dollars from investors. Many of these so-called public project bonds were nothing but shams. They are almost guaranteed to default, leaving thousands of investors with huge losses. And where is the money? Where, dear listeners, is the money? Doing the complex legal work and sending the bonds to market was a bonanza for law firms and underwriters. Hillary's firm got much of the legal work on these bonds. One such contract was the 1985 bond issue to pay for the Arkansas police radio system. Ironically, it was this system which was later used to bust Lassiter on drug charges. Clinton got the Arkansas legislature to approve a contract for Lassiter to sell $30.2 million in the bonds. The contract netted Lassiter $750,000. Lassiter also was passed sweetheart bond deals for the Arkansas Housing Development Agency, AHDA, which awarded millions of dollars in tax-exempt bonds. Altogether, the firm received $1.6 million in brokerage fees for 24 separate tax-exempt bond issues. Representative James Leach of the House Banking Committee is expected to widen his probe of the Whitewater-Madison affair to include these bond deals. Quote, what you have is a picture of Milken-esque economic entanglements in microcosm in the state of Arkansas, unquote, said Leach. These sweetheart deals continued while Lassiter and two of his partners were under investigation for cocaine distribution. Lassiter later was sentenced to 30 months in prison. Although Bill Clinton had personal use of Lassiter's private jet and was rumored to have attended Lassiter's parties, where cocaine sometimes appeared like a blizzard in a veil, as usual, Bill was completely uninvolved and had no knowledge whatsoever. Don't know nothing about no drug parties, don't know nothing about no jet, don't know nothing about no savings and loans, didn't get no money from Whitewater. No knowledge. And, of course, folks, he certainly did not inhale. Even after Lassiter was sentenced to prison, the bond issues continued to flow to his firm. Patsy Thomason, who is presently on Clinton's staff at the White House, was made executive vice president at Lassiter's firm. She was given power of attorney to run the company in his absence. She handled $664 million in Arkansas bond contracts for him. Ms. Thomason is now a Clinton aide at the White House. Where else would she be? Now, why would Lassiter give power of attorney to a Clinton aide if he wasn't Clinton's surrogate all along? I know Clinton's name isn't on it, but he was clearly the one with the power. The Lassiter story would die here, folks, except it gets even more intriguing when you find out how Hillary and her partners at the Rose Law Firm tie into all this. And later, we'll get to a little airstrip in a town called Mena. It's similar to her long-established pattern. The banking officials hire her to sue Lassiter. She fails to disclose her friendship with him or his role as benefactor to her husband. She negotiates a secret out-of-court settlement for far less than the government could have expected to receive. But first, some background. You see, Lassiter's bond trading firm expanded its business beyond Arkansas. He signed deals to trade Treasury bond futures with several savings and loans, including First American Savings and Loan in Oak Brook, Illinois, and Home Federal Savings and Loan in Centralia, Illinois. First American lost at least $361,572 in those T-bond futures trades. Dan Walker, president of First American and a former governor of Illinois, sued Lassiter for unauthorized trading. They had general authority to trade, said Walker, but they were supposed to call us each time they made a trade, and they did not do that. Walker also alleged that Lassiter's firm committed mail wire and securities fraud in the unauthorized trades. His suit never made it to court, however. Walker himself was charged by federal officials of lending himself $1.4 million in federally insured deposits. He was eventually convicted of bank fraud and perjury. Federal regulators seized First American. The FSLIC decided to pursue the $3.3 million suit that Walker began against Lassiter. Of course, they hired the Rose Law Firm. Who else? And the suit was assigned to, guess who? Hillary Clinton. And guess who else, folks? It gets even better. Vincent by God Foster, who later became Deputy White House Counsel for Clinton and who was found dead last July. Hillary and Foster negotiated a confidential settlement. The result, Lassiter paid the government $200,000 in return for a dismissal of the $3.3 million suit. No charges were filed, and he walked away scot-free. Now, it shouldn't take a professor of legal ethics to tell you that Hillary's role in this suit is sleazy. She should have immediately excused herself on grounds of conflict of interest, but as you saw in the previous two programs, she's not in the habit of doing that. Hillary's law firm was hired again by another savings and loan, Home Federal Savings and Loan, in another suit against Lassiter. This suit paralleled that of First American's. Home Federal was seeking a $4.6 million suit against Lassiter and Company, again for unauthorized trading. King Betts was the president of Home Federal. He said that he hired Hillary's firm because the cases were so similar. The government took over Home Federal soon afterward and continued the case. Meanwhile, Thomas Mars, one of the attorneys who had worked with Foster and Hillary in the first suit against Lassiter, left Hillary's firm. Months later, he started representing Lassiter against Home Federal, which was still represented by Hillary's firm. Are you dizzy yet? Don't worry, folks. It gets even better. This roller coaster ride is going to put your stomach right up in the top of your head, I guarantee it. Neither Mars nor Hillary's firm notified Home Federal about this glaring conflict of interest. Betts says he was also never told about Lassiter's ties to the Clintons. Foster, Hillary's partner, advised Betts to accept a $250,000 out-of-court settlement on the $4.6 million case, and they took it. So Hillary saved Lassiter's neck while representing the government against him, and after he had done time for dealing cocaine. Of course, Lassiter had paid off Roger Clinton's cocaine debt, had hired Roger Clinton, was Bill Clinton's protege in business, let him use his jet, brought him in to attend wild, orgasmic parties where the cocaine fell like rain. The final twist in this story takes place in November 1990. Lassiter had been sentenced to 30 months in prison, but after only 4 months in a halfway house and 2 months under house arrest, Governor Bill Clinton gave Lassiter a full pardon. Lassiter is now an executive at Phoenix Mortgage Company in Little Rock. And if you've got money in that company, you better get it out quick. Now, ladies and gentlemen, during this exact same time, the chief of Clinton's personal bodyguards was in charge of the CIA's importation of drugs into the United States of America in a small airstrip in Arkansas called Mena, Arkansas. Clinton denies any knowledge of this. However, when investigators brought this to the attention of the Justice Department, it could no longer be hidden. However, the results of that investigation have not ever been released to the public. But the drugs no longer flow into the United States at Mena, Arkansas. Ollie North knows all about it because the name of Mena, Arkansas came up several times in the Iran-Contra investigations, where they were trading, ladies and gentlemen, arms for drugs, flying the drugs into the United States, selling the drugs, taking the money to finance third world insurrections, illegal wars, and, of course, the destruction of the sovereignty of nations in order to bring about their one world totalitarian socialist government. Ollie North, in his testimony, said that they had even prepared a plan to suspend the Constitution of the United States of America, yet most of you have hailed Ollie North as a great hero. Clinton was obviously and without any doubt involved in the drugs flowing into Mena, Arkansas. There is even speculation, and some evidence has been introduced, that some drugs were manufactured in Arkansas in clandestine labs and distributed from there throughout the rest of the country. Now, I cannot believe that Clinton was nominated for President of the United States. Nick Guarino can't believe that Clinton was nominated for President of the United States. Anyone who has studied Bill Clinton for even 5 minutes is absolutely amazed that he was nominated for the President of the United States. And it's even more shocking that he won the election. Nick Guarino knew Bill Clinton. He knew Arkansas politics. He knew what Bill Clinton had been involved in. How could anyone so corrupt be elected to the presidency of the United States of America? With Clinton's very flawed moral, sexual, emotional, ethical, and business character, he should have been immediately disqualified. Never mind the fact that he clearly dodged the draft, and that has been demonstrated by letters which he wrote in his own handwriting and signed himself. There's no doubt about it. And at a time when Americans were forbidden to travel to the Soviet Union, Bill Clinton was in Moscow being given the red carpet VIP treatment and was given a tour of the Kremlin, met with high-ranking Soviet officials. There is no doubt, ladies and gentlemen, that he was being groomed to bring socialism to the United States of America. Was he a KGB agent, as many people claim? I say it doesn't matter, for at the highest levels, the KGB and the CIA are the same organization. And it shouldn't take too big of a brain to figure that out. The Cold War was a scam. London and Wall Street created the Soviet Union. And Chase Manhattan Bank has had a branch in the Kremlin for over 50 years, ladies and gentlemen. Do you realize that for the first time in our history, a man was running for president while he had been referred for a criminal investigation and possible criminal indictment by an independent federal agency, and the press didn't even discuss it? The fact that the Resolution Trust Corporation would send a criminal referral to the United States Attorney in Arkansas meant there was enough evidence to suggest Clinton had committed numerous federal crimes and would be convicted by a jury of his peers. The 21-page document prepared in the fall of 1992 targeted the Madison failure. It specifically named Bill, Hillary, and current Arkansas Governor Jim Guy Tucker, as well as McDougal and other Clinton cronies. It said they were principals and benefited from the activities of shell corporations created by McDougal. It also said that while there was not yet enough evidence to prove the Clintons and Tucker knew about suspected check-kiting and account overdrafts authorized by McDougal, they stood to benefit from such activities. Officials of two separate federal agencies, the RTC and the SBA, were recommending a criminal investigation of the activities of Clinton and his cronies. The RTC officials felt so strongly about this referral that they issued a second one after the first request had been squashed. Clinton. This referral again named Clinton. The SBA and the RTC strongly recommend proceeding with it even today. The allegations of Clinton's criminal activities have been suppressed. The public has not been allowed to see the details of the criminal referrals. If Clinton were innocent, these documents could prove it. But Bill says the public is not entitled to see them. This from a president who promised an open and honest administration, but like all socialists, he is a liar. Clinton was nominated for president because of a freak situation, they think. Bush was so popular after Desert Storm that everyone, even the Democrats, thought his re-election was a shoo-in. Everyone except me and the listeners of this broadcast, because I told you who was going to be elected, a man that none of you knew anything about. Most of you never heard of him, William Clinton. None of the front-runners in the Democratic Party wanted to risk losing the election. They all panicked and jumped ship. Now, that's what the public is supposed to think, ladies and gentlemen. The truth is, the Bilderberg Group meeting in Baden-Baden, Germany in 1991, the most powerful men and women in the world met and chose Bill Clinton to be the next president of the United States. And as soon as my intelligence reports came to me that this was their decision, I announced on the air on this broadcast that William Clinton would win the election. No doubt about it. There was no need to even consider another candidate winning. And he took the election. You see, George Bush also knew the decision of the Bilderberg Group, and that's why he did not campaign. H. Ross Perot also knew the decision of the Bilderberg Group, and that's why he campaigned to split the conservative vote and then backed out. And that's why Pat Buchanan went around the country taking votes away from conservative candidates also. They split the conservative vote to ensure that candidate Bill Clinton would fulfill the wishes of the most powerful, richest men and women in the world. And the only place you heard about it was on the hour of the time. At first, it didn't look like Clinton had a chance, folks. Most of you never heard of him. Most of you never checked into his background. Most of you never asked any questions, especially if you were a Democrat or a liberal or a socialist. But the months passed, and the excitement of the Gulf War died down. Public sentiment began to focus on our economic woes at home. George Bush failed to campaign, and Clinton was promising a new social order that would end all our worries. Americans believed him because they were desperate. We were in a recession and sinking deeper. Truth is, it was a depression. Many, including some Republicans, blamed Bush. They wanted anyone who promised better times. The real culprit is the Federal Reserve. They can create depressions, recessions, inflation, anything they want, anytime they want, and the president is powerless to stop it. Clinton was making the promise that the public wanted to hear, and the public, you, the sheeple, were unwilling to see his flaws. At any mention of his unsavory past, Clinton's spin doctors created diversions and cried foul. And you, the sheeple, let him get away with it. Americans forgot something about elections. They're supposed to be smear campaigns. They're supposed to sling mud. If the candidates have dirty laundry, we should see it. It has to come out. And that's when it should come out. And that's the only way we can judge the candidate's most important quality, and that is character. If a man lies to his wife, he's going to lie to you. If he cheats on her every chance he gets, he'll cheat on you. If he steals from the constituents of his home state, he'll steal from you. If he can be bought for money, he has no principles. Instead of a question of whether he'll sell out his country, it's only a question of how much and when. And if a man is willing to do anything to get power, all can let it sink in. Over 28 people closely associated with Bill Clinton have died. Some have been murdered, some have been beaten to death, some have died supposedly of suicide, but they have died. The odds against that happening in such a short time are incalculable, impossible. Vincent Foster, found dead in a little-known Washington park. Supposedly committed suicide, but all of the clues point to the fact that he was murdered somewhere else and brought there, and that he was murdered execution style. And guess what? The homicide investigation was conducted by the park police, who know absolutely nothing about conducting homicide investigations, and that's why his body was deposited there. So no legitimate homicide investigation would be conducted because the park police had jurisdiction and no one else had jurisdiction and no one else was allowed to investigate. And you all bought it. You all bought it. Bill Clinton is the most dangerous political figure of this century. We have not seen so much corruption, immorality, and cynical contempt for his fellow man in a head of state since Stalin. And Stalin also was a Marxist, a socialist, a communist. And so is Bill Clinton, and so is his wife Hillary. They have been linked, not by me, folks, although in our follow-up investigation we found that the links are true, but by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. They have been linked to Marxist terrorist groups. Hillary, during her whole life, has been a supporter of socialism and has been linked directly to financial support of Marxist terrorist groups. Yet the American public don't want to hear this. Don't want to hear it. Clinton's contempt permeates everything he does. How many of you have noticed that sleazy little stupid smile that he always has on his face, even when he's talking about something tragic? It never goes away. It is a symbol of contempt. It is the outward display of what he's really thinking inside. There's a sucker born every minute. That's what he's really thinking inside. I always get the feeling that he can't really believe he's where he's at. And he gives himself the credit, even though very little of the credit belongs to Bill Clinton. As an Oxford schoolmate, Jackson, an honorable man, said of him, Clinton derives pleasure from manipulating and deceiving people, and how well we've learned that. He said he had kept silent about Clinton for years, but, quote, it just seemed too serious a thing that the American people would elect him as their leader, unquote. This is the stuff dictators are made out of. Bill Clinton believes the greatest lie of all, that the end justifies the means. And isn't that what those who call themselves the Illuminati believe? Fraud, deception, obstruction of justice, possibly even conspiracy to murder, maybe even murder itself, all to win the presidency. He has put himself above the law. With the investigations pending in the RTC and SBA and a criminal referral waiting to be acted on in Arkansas, Clinton should have been exposed and deposed of easily. But his spin doctors, professional liars, were brilliant. They were able to keep the American people and the Republican Party from learning crucial facts about Clinton that they had a right to know. And Bush's campaign people must have been asleep at the wheel, you think? No, not at all. Bush was not supposed to win, and so he didn't. Bush is a team player, if you haven't figured that out. Now, these facts, folks, if known, would surely have cost Clinton the election. But Clinton made sure they were covered up. Ladies and gentlemen, the Hour of the Time is brought to you by Swiss America Trading. They specialize in providing non-reportable, non-confiscatable hard assets that can be used to protect your wealth, what you've worked for all your life and accumulated, what protects your family against economic instability or collapse. Now, if you don't have your assets, your money, your savings, your property covered, at least in part, by something that has proven throughout the centuries to hold its value in total economic collapse, then you are doing your loved ones and yourself a great disservice. I want you to call our sponsors tonight. I don't care if you patronize them or someone else. I hope that if you derive real worth from the Hour of the Time, that you would show your loyalty by patronizing our sponsor. However, if you choose to go somewhere else, the important thing is that you do it. But call them tonight. Call Swiss America Trading, mention my name, William Cooper, and ask for the free newsletters and written material that you need to see. You need to read this material. You're entitled to it as a listener to the Hour of the Time. Make sure that you investigate the means that they have available, that you can protect your assets, because, folks, we're headed for a great fall. I've been warning you for some time now, and it's getting closer all the time. Do it now. You'll be glad that you did. And while you're at it, thank them for sponsoring the Hour of the Time. Call now, 1-800-289-2646. That's 1-800-289-2646. You'll be glad that you did. The RTC's criminal referral that mentioned Bill and Hillary was sent to Charles Banks, United States Attorney in Little Rock, on October 7, 1992, less than a month before the election. Banks' chief assistant, Mac Dotson, immediately sent an urgent report to top United States Justice Department lawyers. He said the Clintons were named as possible beneficiaries of McDougal's criminal activities in the referral. Dotson wrote that he believed further criminal investigation is warranted. This should have led to an immediate criminal investigation. It's standard procedure. If it were you, you would have been arrested and thrown in jail. And the American people should have been told that the Democratic nominee for president who was leading the polls might be a criminal who could soon come under indictment. But former United States Attorney General William P. Barr says he did not find out about the urgent report until just before the election. The United States Attorney's Office in Little Rock apparently concealed the RTC criminal referral from him. It has been revealed that the Little Rock office failed to put the referral into the computer reporting systems. If they had done so, the referral would have been brought to the attention of senior officials. But by the time the Attorney General did find out, it was too late. Clinton won the election. Barr was soon removed from his post, and the referral died. RTC field officials must be very convinced that the Clintons were involved in criminal activity with McDougal, because they have issued new referrals with even stronger documentation, and that is also withheld from the public. Again, the referrals named Clinton, Hillary, Tucker, McDougal, and Ward, as well as numerous other big borrowers and Madison officials. This is highly unusual. Once a referral like this is dropped, it usually stays dropped. But they have the assistance also of the Central Intelligence Agency in suppressing this information. For if the investigation were righteously pursued, it would lead directly to the doorstep of the Central Intelligence Agency. The field officials who issued the referral have even gone so far as to appeal to top RTC brass in Washington for guidance. But Washington has refused to intervene. It's not surprising Clinton fired the head of the RTC last year and replaced him temporarily with his old college roommate, Roger Altman, another crony. Altman, who is also Deputy Treasury Secretary, working for the International Monetary Fund under the United Nations, has refused to take any action against his good friend. Altman was supposed to fill the RTC spot for only 1 month while Clinton nominated a full-time replacement. Congress had already stated that they would not approve Altman for the permanent post because of his obvious conflicts of interest. This from Congress! But a year later, with the criminal allegations still unanswered, uninvestigated, and languishing, no permanent RTC chief has been named yet. And I venture to tell you that none will be. Clinton has filled Washington with his loyal cronies, and they are all protecting him. At the Treasury Department, he has Janet Reno, who cooperated in suppressing Whitewater documents and refused for months to conduct an investigation into Whitewater. At the RTC, he has his old college buddy, Roger Altman. At the FBI, he has Louis Frisch, who was handpicked by White House counsel Bernard Nussbaum. And I think I said Treasury Department for Janet Reno. I meant to say Justice Department. I hope you will forgive me. In Arkansas, he has his new United States Attorney, Paula Casey. When Clinton's friend Altman refused to follow up on his RTC field officials' referrals, they were sent her in Arkansas, and this was October 1993. Casey, who was a Clinton appointee, campaign volunteer, and former student of Clinton's at the University of Arkansas, got the job after Janet Reno fired Charles Banks, the previous United States Attorney. It was rumored that Banks had been about to issue subpoenas on Whitewater Madison. Casey, Clinton's hand-picked choice, refused to act on the criminal referral. Socialists are liars, deceivers, and if they remain in power, they will strip us of all of our liberties. You watch. On October 27, 1993, a stack of new referrals on her desk, Casey finally responded to 6 months of RTC inquiries on the fate of their first referral, then a year old. She told the RTC she concurred with the Justice Department's decision to forego an investigation due to insufficient information. She lied. Days later, in the wake of news reports about the latest RTC referrals and question about her ties to Clinton and other senior Democrats in the case, Casey rescued herself from further involvement. That is, she removed herself from the case. But Clinton's buddies, dear listeners, aren't going to be able to protect him indefinitely. The House and Senate have recently both passed legislation authorizing a Watergate-style special prosecutor, and these bills need to be reconciled in conference committee, and you need to call your congressmen, your representatives, and your senators and insist that this be done and that no stops be allowed. Robert Fisk, Clinton's hand-picked special prosecutor, has been so overwhelmed by the evidence that he requested and received a special grand jury in Little Rock to investigate the allegations against Clinton. This is the first time in the history of the United States that any president has ever faced a grand jury. But it will take a special prosecutor with subpoena and prosecutorial power, independent of the White House, to get the truth out, and he's going to have to be a man solid within himself, confident, at peace with God, for he will be intimidated. He will know about the 28 dead bodies littered about Bill Clinton. It will take a very special person to be able to deal with the fear that will come with this job. It's going to happen. Clinton is going to be the first president to go straight from the White House to jail. The presidency will come down. A key player in the sordid affairs of Whitewater and Bill Clinton's rise to power is Vincent Foster. Foster worked at the Rose Law Firm, where along with Hillary and Webster Hubbell, he was a senior partner. Foster, dear listeners, was a fixer. He was deeply involved in the Clintons' S&L scams and cover-ups. He was the one who conned the FDIC into hiring Hillary to sue the auditors of her former client, Madison Guarantee, the Madison Guarantee that was paying her $2,000 a month retainer. Hillary and Foster convinced the FDIC to settle its $60 million case for $1 million. They also forgave a $600,000 loan to Seth Ward, father-in-law of one of their partners at Rose. Rose's fee was $400,000. Foster was also a key attorney, again with Hillary, in getting drug dealer Dan Lassiter off the hook in two other multi-million-dollar S&L scandals. Lassiter was being sued by the FDIC for $7.9 million. Hillary and Foster, while representing the government, got him off for $450,000. And when the chief of Clinton's personal security was found operating a large drug importation business in Mena, Arkansas, Foster covered up for the Clintons on that one, too. These scams cost the American taxpayers at least minimum, because nobody can really tell, minimum $60 million. Well, they made a small fortune for Hillary, Foster, Lassiter, and their other cronies. It's also been reported by reliable witnesses that Foster and Hillary were lovers. Former law enforcement officials state that on numerous occasions they saw Foster and Hillary passionately embracing. They often spent weekends together at the Rose Law Firm's secluded cabin. When Hillary filed for divorce against Bill in 1986, Foster, the man she called her closest friend, was there for her. Foster played a key role in getting Clinton elected president. He proved the Clintons lost money in Whitewater by hiring longtime Clinton associate attorney James Lyons to lead up an independent audit. Clinton rewarded Lyons by naming him to a prestigious U.S. government advisory panel seeking peace in Ireland. This audit has come under heavy fire. And our opinion, my opinion, Nick Guarino's opinion, many of our chief CAGI operatives across this country, it was worthless. An entire year's worth of records were missing, and the auditors ignored countless documents, but Foster's ruse worked. When Whitewater was brought up during the campaign, Clinton pointed to the independent CPA audit that showed he had lost $68,900, the audit that had no records to audit. The press bought the story because they wanted to see their liberal, Marxist, socialist scumbag hero in the White House. Their dream of destroying the sovereignty of the United States and bringing about their new world order could be realized very quickly. After he was elected president, Clinton appointed Foster as deputy White House counsel. Foster was also acting as the Clintons' personal attorney, which should have been a conflict of interest. But his real job was to bury Bill and Hillary's sordid past, and especially Whitewater, as deep as he could. And of course, there are the clandestine meetings with Hillary, over which several Secret Service agents are said to have quit their job. And because of other allegations involving Bill and women that they were required to bring into the White House for him. It's on record. The problem was Whitewater wouldn't stay buried. Foster had been on the job only a few months, yet more and more damaging news kept coming out in the press about the phony losses, the tax returns that were never filed, the paperwork that was missing, Clinton's ties to McDougal, the missing money. Instead of getting hushed up, the whole affair was getting worse. And now, because of this broadcast, they can never bury it. For what the traditional press has hidden from the public, I have revealed. And every month, new investigations keep springing up on scandals that Foster was supposed to have handled. The RTC had sent a second request to the Justice Department in its ever-expanding criminal investigation of Bill and Hillary Clinton. It was clear this one wasn't simply going away. Travelgate. The sham deal in the White House travel office was coming unglued. FBI Director William Sessions was enraged that Clinton was trying to use the FBI to cover up his Travelgate and Whitewater messes. When Waco broke out, he was forbidden to travel to the scene and was eventually fired. The FBI was about to uncover the SBA Hale-Whitewater connection. Hale, a Clinton appointee, charged that Clinton had forced him to give fraudulent SBA loans worth millions to his cronies. The last straw came when Sessions issued a subpoena for Hale's documents, including papers related to Whitewater. That same day, Clinton fired Sessions. The first time ever an FBI director has been dismissed. Hillary was in deep trouble over her conflicts of interest in insider trading of healthcare stocks. The Whitewater cover-up was falling apart. McDougal had gone to an attorney in Little Rock and made a taped statement. Quote, "I could sink it." Rumors came to him that the Washington Times was going to publish an expose of his sordid past. And McDougal had said, "I could sink it quicker than they could lie about it, if I could get in a position so I wouldn't have my head beaten off, and Bill knows that," unquote. Another scandal, the illegal search of confidential State Department documents by Clinton officials, was about to explode. Clinton desperately needed ammunition to blackmail his political enemies as the Whitewater scandal unfolded. The State Department Office of Investigation was demanding criminal action be taken against Clinton aides for these crimes. Clinton had a serious problem, folks. Foster knew all of the Clintons' dirty deals. He knew where the bodies were buried. He was party to many of them and was the hatchet man in charge of covering them up. Other than Hillary, Foster was the only person alive who knew the intimate details. And if what he knew ever came out, Clinton would get impeached. And it was coming out. Foster was showing signs of cracking. He knew he might be the next one targeted in the criminal indictments, and he told his brother-in-law, former Arkansas Congressman Burl Anthony, that he was very worried that Congress was about to launch a probe into his affairs. Foster even retained his own personal lawyer. He wrote, quote, "No one will believe the Clintons are innocent," unquote. Foster had become a danger to the president. He knew too much. He could not be allowed to live. And while we cannot prove what I am going to tell you next, these events are pieced together from circumstantial evidence that we have accumulated. On July 20th, 1993, Foster's worst nightmare came true. A shocking phone call told him the FBI was about to issue subpoenas for David Hale. Foster knew Hale would crack and lead them to Tucker, Smith, Madison Marketing, Castle Grande, and Whitewater. He immediately rose from his desk and had an emergency meeting with Bill Clinton. He told Clinton the SBA affair was about to be blown wide open. It wouldn't take long for them to piece together the looting of Madison. The president was going down. Foster wanted to resign. Foster wanted, folks, to resign. Clinton had a plan of his own. He told Foster to calm down, that they could handle it just as they always had. He told him to set up a meeting on Whitewater outside the White House for later that day. When Foster arrived, his assassins were waiting. They shot him in the head, drove his body to Fort Marcy, where they carefully staged Foster's suicide. And here's how they covered up the murder. First, they had to make sure none of Foster's incriminating papers were found, so contrary to standard police procedure, Foster's office was not immediately sealed. Instead, Chief White House Counsel Bernard Nussbaum, along with Hillary's Chief of Staff Margaret Williams and Clinton aide Patsy Thomason, the one who ran Dan Lassiter's bond company while he was in the halfway house, entered the office just hours after Foster was found. His body wasn't even cold, folks. They spent 2 hours rifling through his office, taking out the sensitive documents on Whitewater and Travelgate. Those documents have never been made public. And next, they had to make sure no credible law enforcement agency would investigate Foster's death, and especially not the FBI, so they dumped the body in a public park, and Clinton's Justice Department assigned the case to the Keystone Cops of the Park Police. The park police are normally in charge of crowd control. In the politically charged death of a key government official, they don't know what to do, and this was proved by the incredible way they bungled the investigation. You're listening to the Hour of the Time. I'm your host, William Cooper. We still have the seed packets open, folks. $48 for listeners to the Hour of the Time and $40 for CAGI members. Remember, this is the varieties of top quality seeds, and they were selected by virtue of not only their popularity, but their hardiness and general adaptability throughout all the temperate climates. They are open-pollinated varieties. They're not hybrids. They're open-pollinated varieties. They've been garden tested, and they've been grown throughout the United States. They've proven their yields through the test of time. One order will bring you 4 cans. Each can plots a garden plot 65 feet by 124 feet. So the 4 cans will plant 4 times that much. That's 65 feet by 124 feet. Multiply that times 4, and that's how many seeds you got. In the package comes sweet corn, snap beans, garden peas, beets, cabbage, cantaloupe, carrots, cucumber, lettuce, onion, bell pepper, winter squash, summer squash, spinach, tomato, broccoli, and watermelon. The seeds have been selected for their high germination rate. They've been dry conditioned to precise specifications and hermetically sealed to ensure their maximum storage life in a heavy-duty can. If the cans are kept sealed and in a cool place, the seeds inside will be maintained at the highest possible germination level. And remember, folks, when they opened up the tombs in Egypt, they found seeds that were over 2,000 years old. Still grew when they were planted. You can't beat this deal. Everybody all over the country is always looking for open-pollinated seeds. Non-hybrids, and they're very difficult to find. So take advantage of it. $40 for listeners to the Hour of the Time. $48. Remember, $48 for listeners to the Hour of the Time. $40 for CAGI members. Also, we have available the pantry unit, which will feed 1 person for 3 months or 2 people for 1 1/2 months. That's dehydrated, nitrogen-packed, in enameled cans, will feed 1 person for 3 months or 2 people for 1 1/2 months. It's 4 cases of number 10 cans. Shipping weight is 87 pounds. Remember, you pay the freight upon delivery. The retail price is $380. $380. For listeners to the Hour of the Time, we give you $80 right off the top. For listeners, $300 is your price. For CAGI members, $290 is your price. Take advantage of these, folks. Remember, we're facing hard times. A lot of you people who experienced the earthquake in the San Fernando Valley, North Ridge, if you had had some of this food storage material, you wouldn't have had to stood in those long, long lines waiting for help from Big Daddy Uncle Sam. You see, you should have thought of that beforehand. If you live in California and you're surprised when a big earthquake comes, then there's something wrong with your head. You better open it up, take the rocks out, and put some brains back in there. Also, we're offering the emergency unit, which is, we'll feed one person for 1 month. One person for 1 month. It's 5 cases. It weighs 38 pounds shipping weight. Remember, you pay the freight when it arrives at your doorstep. And we have to have a delivery address, folks. It doesn't have to be your address. We don't care what it is or where it is or who it is, as long as it's a physical address. If you send us a P.O. box number, you're going to have a hard time getting this stuff through the mail. And when you have to pay the freight, you're going to be shocked if it comes through the mail. So, got to have a physical address. Okay, the emergency unit feeds one person for 1 month. The retail price is $213. $213. For listeners to the hour of the time, the price is $190. For CAGI members, $180. Take advantage of these, folks. Remember, make checks or money orders out to Annie, A-N-N-I-E. Annie, A-N-N-I-E. Just one name, very simple, A-N-N-I-E. Send it to CAGI, C-A-J-I, P.O. Box 1420, Sholo, spelled S-H-O-W-L-O-W, Arizona 85901. That's CAGI, C-A-J-I, P.O. Box 1420, Sholo, Arizona 85901. Now, do it now. Don't wait. Gee, I mean, we went all the way from a family unit that would feed 4 people, 4 adults for 1 year. The retail price was $2,768, all the way down to an emergency unit feeding 1 month, one person for 1 month. Retail price is $213, and we've given you tremendous discounts on all of this stuff. So take advantage of it, folks, while you can. We are moving. What you're hearing tonight is a tape prepared as the last segment on the Clinton expose, and the subsequent tapes that you will hear for, I don't really know how long, but until we finish our move and get the new studio set up and feel comfortable where we can take the time out to resume these broadcasts, you'll be hearing reruns beginning tomorrow night. Now, we're getting a lot of calls wanting to know how you can get these tapes. I've already given you the address, and $9 per tape. You must specify the date and the subject that the program was aired. You must specify the date and the subject unless you have our catalog, and then you can specify the catalog number. But if you hear any broadcast on the hour of the time that you would like to acquire, send $9 per tape, specify the date and the subject or the name of the guest if it's a guest, and we'll get the tapes right out to you, folks. Don't go away. I'll be right back. On Friday night, we ended in the middle of the death and investigation of the death of a man named Vincent Foster. Now, I'm not going to go into what led up to this again tonight. I'm just going to finish where we left off, and hopefully tonight finish with this whole sordid thing. And it is sordid, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to begin with how they covered up the murder of Vincent Foster. First, ladies and gentlemen, they had to make sure none of Foster's incriminating papers were found. So contrary to standard police procedure, Foster's office was not immediately sealed. Instead, Chief White House Counsel Bernard Nussbaum, along with Hillary's Chief of Staff, Margaret Williams, and Clinton aide Patsy Thomason, the one who ran Dan Lassiter's bond company while he was in the halfway house, entered the office just hours after Foster was found. His body wasn't even cold yet. They spent 2 hours rifling through his office, taking out the sensitive documents on Whitewater and Travelgate, and those documents have never been made public. Next, they had to make sure no credible law enforcement agency would investigate Foster's death, and especially not the FBI. They dumped the body in a public park, and Clinton's Justice Department assigned the case to the Keystone Cops, called the Park Police. You see, the Park Police are normally in charge of crowd control. In the politically charged death of a key government official, they don't even know what to do. And this was proved by the incredible, insane way that they bungled the entire investigation. Other than an autopsy, no sophisticated investigation was done until much later. Though it's standard procedure to make the autopsy public 6 months later, that still has not happened, and don't look for it to happen, folks. The Park Police did no ballistic test on the weapon until 4 to 5 months after Foster died, so they don't know if the gun they recovered actually killed Foster. They recovered no bullet. They did not even search the death scene with a metal detector to recover the critical missing bullet, which should have been standard procedure. Witnesses reported seeing a van and a menacing-looking Hispanic man around Foster's car just before Foster's body was discovered, but the Park Police never had composite sketches made to identify this man. The truth is, the Park Police has never been trained in how to conduct a homicide investigation. They didn't seal Foster's office until 2 whole days after his murder. His office should have been sealed immediately. A former Washington police official stated, quote, "I was completely shocked to have learned that Foster's office wasn't sealed immediately after his death," unquote. It was many months before the Park Police sent out Foster's clothing and the gun for forensic examination. Many months, allowing deterioration of evidence. And who knows what happened to the clothing and the gun during that period of time. Who knows whether they were washed or not? Who knows exactly who handled that clothing and that weapon? You see, the clothing and the gun should have been sent out the day after the murder for forensic examination. But Park Police spokesman Major Robert Hines said the agency did not need forensics to make our conclusion that Foster committed suicide. Rather than sending evidence to the FBI gun lab, the finest in the world, the Park Police sent the evidence to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, BATF. The murderers, the people who conducted the massacre at Waco, Texas, the people who don't even work for the United States government, but for the International Monetary Fund under the United Nations, according to the Treaty of Bretton Woods. Well-placed sources at the BATF said they were very surprised to learn that Park Police claimed tests had been done at the BATF labs. They knew nothing about it. And, of course, if tests had been done there, they should have known something about it. Statements of paramedics on the scene strongly suggest Foster was murdered elsewhere, his body brought to the park where it was staged to look like a suicide. The paramedics, who have since been forced by government officials to remain silent, and no one can be forced to remain silent, folks, which means they just don't have any backbone. Jellyfish sheeple is what I call them. They said it was the most unusual suicide they'd seen. A gunshot wound to the head should have blown out his entire back of his head. Blood and guts should have been spewed out all over the murder scene, but only a trickle of blood was found down Foster's cheek with no blood on the gun itself. Incredibly, they could find no exit wound. Later, the government said there was an exit wound. With the high-velocity cartridge of a .38, the gun should have been flung from the body, according to one pathologist, up to 30 feet away. It was found still being held in Foster's right hand, both arms at his sides. Foster himself should have been sprawled and contorted from the violence of the shot. Instead, he was found lying flat on his back, both legs straight, side by side, and the paramedics said it looked as though he had been laid out ready for the coffin. I think this was done to send a very clear message, quote, "Don't talk," unquote. Other people involved in the Clinton scams knew Foster. They would quickly see this was no suicide. At the same time, the spin doctors were able to convince the press Foster had somehow taken his own life. The so-called suicide note didn't show up until 6 days after Foster's death. It was unsigned, undated, ripped into 27 pieces, and contained no fingerprints. It was probably a page torn out of Foster's diary, if he even wrote it, and certainly was not a suicide note. It never even mentioned suicide. Nussbaum supposedly found it while going through Foster's briefcase, which he had taken from Foster's office. But FBI and Park Police agents watching Nussbaum rifle the office said they had a clear view of the briefcase and nothing was in it. The FBI has opened an obstruction of justice investigation into the events surrounding Foster's murder and cover-up. Among other things, the FBI is questioning Nussbaum's handling of murder documents. The number 2 man in the Justice Department, Philip Heyman, took exception to the handling of the Foster investigation, and he was abruptly terminated by Bill Clinton through Janet Reno, the mastermind of the Waco massacre. Heyman was a career justice lawyer who had been there through 4 Democratic administrations covering 33 years. He was in charge of the Justice Department's Criminal Division, which handles all criminal investigations. It's obvious, folks, that Mr. Heyman, an honest man, left a career position because he would not be party to another Clinton cover-up, this one Foster's murder. Why was Foster killed? We think there were 3 reasons. First, he bungled the cover-ups. Second, he knew too much, and he was showing signs of caving in. Finally, he was the perfect fall guy. He would become the hole where the documents could easily disappear. Clinton could say, quote, "Foster had the documents," unquote. In Arkansas, it was a common saying, "Get Clinton to Washington so our money and our women will be safe." Clinton has always had a hankering for women, and as a powerful politician, he has indulged that hankering to the limit. Jennifer Flowers was the most public of his many affairs. She was a former cabaret singer, a striking-looking woman. Bill met her when she was in her early 20s. He quickly made her his mistress. Bill and Jennifer were frequently seen together at social functions across Arkansas. Flowers revealed intimate details of her long-term sexual relationship with Clinton. She told when, where, and how. When prompted, she even told about Clinton's sexual prowess. Clinton betrayed his wife with this woman for 12 years. He put her on the state payroll. Of course, paying someone for a sexual relationship out of state funds directly violates state and federal law. When asked about his affair with Jennifer Flowers, Clinton hemmed and hawed, but he never, not once, ever denied it. At the same time, Clinton also had an ongoing affair with Sally Perdue, a former Miss Arkansas. She says state troopers used to bring Clinton in police cars to have sex with her. She also gives details of Bill's preferences, saying he liked to wear her black nightgown while he played the sax for her. Miss Perdue said she was later offered a cushy federal job to keep her mouth shut. That apparently was not unusual for Bill Clinton. U.S. News reported that among the controversies surrounding Clinton are that he used state funds to pay for sex with at least 4 other women besides Jennifer Flowers. Police officers say they brought women to Clinton for sex before and after he was elected president. And several Secret Service employees, Secret Service men assigned to guard the president, have resigned, ladies and gentlemen, because they didn't like being turned into pimps for both of the Clintons. Like John Kennedy, Clinton apparently did not stop his extramarital sex affairs after he was elected president. Arkansas state troopers say that as members of Governor Clinton's security staff, they were expected to set up a series of extramarital affairs and romantic adventures for him. They even say that they alerted Clinton whenever his wife was on the prowl, booked hotel rooms for his trusts, lent him unmarked police vehicles, and stood guard while he dallied in the back seat of parked police cars. The troopers say Clinton had multiple sexual encounters up until days before his inauguration. This included receiving oral sex in parking lots. He also had them deliver gifts to his girlfriends. And folks, this was not just one Arkansas state trooper, nor two Arkansas state troopers, but as many as 8. Did Clinton try to buy their silence? The Los Angeles Times reports there's credible evidence that 1, the troopers' allegations of sex are true, and 2, Clinton violated federal criminal statute as recently as fall of 1993. 2 of the Arkansas policemen said Clinton tried to keep them from talking to reporters by suggesting he was willing to appoint them to high-paying federal jobs. Danny Ferguson was one of these troopers. He said Clinton phoned him several times to find out what he and the other policemen were saying. Clinton told Ferguson he wanted to come in the back door and shut it down. Roger Perry, one of the 2 troopers who went public just recently, confirmed what Ferguson said about the president's calls. According to Perry, Ferguson told him Clinton offered Ferguson his choice of 2 jobs: United States Marshal in Little Rock, paying $67,000 a year, or regional director of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, with a starting salary of $93,000 a year. And Clinton, of course, denies this. But he already has rewarded one of the 4 troopers, Buddy Young, with a FEMA regional directorship. According to a report in the Washington Times, Young's only qualification for the job appeared to be his success in suppressing bimbo eruptions. Bimbo eruptions, which of course would have revealed Clinton's erections. According to Ferguson, Clinton also asked him to tell Perry that he could have anything he wanted. If the troopers' statements are true, and all the evidence says that they are, Clinton offered favors so the troopers would hold their tongues. That is in violation of a number of federal statutes, but it is totally in keeping with the character of the man we elected president, as you have discovered by listening to the previous 3 broadcasts of the Hour of the Time. On 3 different occasions, Nick Grano interviewed 3 Arkansas state prisoners. They all related the same basic story. While trustees, in effect prisoners who had special privileges while in prison, they worked at the governor's mansion. During that time, they and other people they knew were used as couriers to escort the bag money in the high-stakes poker games involving Clinton and his cronies. As it was explained to Nick, the money was never around the poker games. The wealthy and powerful players in the poker games would buy their chips from the courier. When the game was over, they would go to a courier at a different location who would cash them out. They also told stories of obtaining women and drugs for participants in the game. Now, Nick has no way of knowing if these allegations are true, but they were in line with rumors that he heard through the years about Clinton's voracious appetites for women and gambling, and rumors that have permeated the social circles in Arkansas. One of Clinton's close friends was millionaire drug dealer Dan Lassiter. Now, I've told you about the lucrative business deals Clinton gave to Lassiter. Lassiter showed his appreciation in more ways, ladies and gentlemen, than just cash. More ways than just cash. According to police files, Lassiter threw lavish parties, often with lines of cocaine, and of course, lots of beautiful women. It's even been rumored that Clinton attended these parties. He frequently flew around the United States with Lassiter and Lassiter's private jet. Clinton claims he stopped his relationship with Lassiter when he learned of his coming drug conviction. But witnesses report Governor Clinton continued to associate with Lassiter even after he had been informed that Lassiter was under investigation for drug dealing. In 1986, Lassiter was sentenced to 30 months in prison for distributing cocaine. One of the people he distributed to was Clinton's brother, Roger. He only spent 4 months in a halfway house and 2 months in home confinement. Bill Clinton, as we have already revealed, then gave him a full pardon. Just what could Clinton be doing at the wild parties of a soon-to-be-convicted drug dealer? Just what did he and Lassiter do in Lassiter's plane as they jetted all around the United States? Remember, Clinton admits to smoking pot as a college student. What might he get from a multi-millionaire wheeler dealer who would soon be convicted of distributing cocaine? No matter where you go in Arkansas, folks, you can find someone who has a story of Clinton's love of sex and gambling. I've talked to many people who told me about high-stake poker games and encounters Clinton had with women in hotel rooms. Nick Guarmo has spoken to these same people and many more, and has discovered the same allegations. Every other month, a new person comes forward who has knowledge of Clinton's immoral escapades involving sex or money. In February 1994, still another woman spoke out. It was the same old pattern. She was a campaign worker. She was beautiful. She says Clinton aides told her Clinton wanted to speak with her in a private room. When she got there, he asked for sex. Unlike many, she refused, but like all the others, she was immediately discredited by Clinton spin doctors. Now, we're not talking about some Hollywood sex symbol or superstar athlete. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the President of the United States of America. He is the commander-in-chief of the world's greatest military power. He is charged with protecting the citizens of this country. He is a man who is supposed to be above corruption. If this man cannot control himself morally, what danger are we in? During the 1992 campaign, Hillary and Bill appeared on numerous TV shows, including 60 Minutes. In that interview, Bill never denied his sexual escapades, not once, not even a hint of denial. But he did indicate all these mistakes were behind him. You may remember his sincerity. The moment was really touching. The silly, stupid little grin was there, as it always is. But we don't believe that he had any intention of stopping then or now. It was just a ruse to get elected, and that is the ultimate danger of Bill Clinton. He is completely amoral. He is a true sociopath. He will say or do anything to get what he wants. He has no conscience, no feeling, no empathy for other people. I doubt if he even understands that other people have feelings. Only in America can a poor country boy go from a dead broke political hack to a multi-millionaire and president of the United States. But Bill Clinton's is not a Horatio Alger story. He's closer to Al Capone. His story is so complex that most people lose the significance of the events that took place. As governor of Arkansas, Bill Clinton and his cronies looted a savings and loan, the SBA and the Arkansas Development Bond Authority. He needed money and power to finance a bid for his ultimate goal, the presidency. He dabbled with the Central Intelligence Agency's efforts to import drugs into the United States through the airstrip at Mena, Arkansas. He wined and dined with a man who was convicted of distributing cocaine. Over 28 bodies litter the ground around Bill Clinton. People closely connected to him who have died under mysterious circumstances within just the last couple of years, folks. 3, if you will remember, during the massacre at Waco, Texas. Bill Clinton himself admitted that 3 of the BATF agents killed during the initial assault on the church known as Branch Davidian, probably by friendly fire, had been his personal bodyguards during his presidential campaign. Don't go away. There's more. America Trading. They specialize in providing non-confiscatable, non-reportable hard assets to protect your wealth. Whatever your wealth may be. If you have $50 or $50 million, that is exactly what they do. You see, there's only one thing throughout the history of the world that has been able to protect the wealth of anyone. There's only one thing that stood up during hard economic times, our total economic collapse, and that has been precious metals in their various forms. If you have not taken the steps to protect what you have from what is sure to come, and it is sure to come, then you had better do that now. If you don't wish to deal with Swiss America Trading, at least deal with someone. Do it. You must take these steps. 1-800-289-2646 is the number. 1-800-289-2646. Mention my name, of course, and you'll get the free newsletter and a lot of other written material that you need to read. You need to have this information. It's important. While you're at it, thank them for sponsoring the Hour of the Time. Call now, 1-800-289-2646. That's 1-800-289-2646. Investigate the many plans that they have that can help you protect what you have. And if they don't have a plan, suggest one to them. If you have an idea of what you'd like to do with your assets in order to protect them, talk to the people, the good people at Swiss America Trading, about your idea and see what they can do to make it come to pass. 1-800-289-2646. Once again, that's 1-800-289-2646. You'll be very, very happy that you did. Clinton set up his cronies in key positions. They arranged sham real estate deals. They inflated the value of property that was basically worthless, and they borrowed millions of dollars against those properties. Most of these deals, folks, involved very inexpensive land on which they borrowed far more than actual value. When they were done, all these projects showed enormous losses, and remarkably, all the borrowed money is gone. All, not part, folks, all the borrowed money is gone. The plan, of course, was fraudulent and illegal. It was also successful beyond Clinton's wildest dreams. As governor, Clinton held near total control of the state, the bond authority, the banking authorities, the securities commissions. He could give jobs when he needed it. He could borrow money and authorize money to be loaned to his cronies. He controlled $1 billion political plum, the unimaginable wealth of the Arkansas state bond authorities. They loaned out literally $1 billion to his associates, friends, and favored projects. Now remember, they loaned out literally $1 billion to his associates, friends, and favored projects. And we have already told you, folks, all the borrowed money is gone. Madison Guarantee was looted for $60 million or more, probably much, much more, but no one will ever really know. For all the records have disappeared, deeds have disappeared, checks have disappeared, financial records have disappeared, loans have disappeared. In the next 10 years, many bonds issued under the Clinton administration will go into default. And that $60 million figure is going to appear like a speck of sand on a California beach compared to the losses that will be experienced by those who purchased those bonds. Clinton was governor over several million people and stole millions. And if you count the bond deals as stealing, which they certainly were, billions of dollars. He's now president, ladies and gentlemen, over 260 million people. And I might remind him that we still have our guns. He controls trillions of dollars, and his pattern of lies and deceits has continued right on. NAFTA, government health care, ever higher taxes, the socialization of America's great free enterprise system are all a part of the great plan to pull this nation down and bring together their dream, this great socialist dream of a one-world totalitarian state. Clinton has just one problem, ladies and gentlemen. Just one little problem out of all the many that he faces, and that problem is he will be impeached. What the establishment press, the socialist-controlled press in this country has suppressed, I have revealed, and it can no longer be hidden. Every dirty deed he ever did in Arkansas is starting to bubble to the top of the cesspool he created, and it stinks. The filth will bury him, just as he has tried to bury it. As Whitewater continues to unfold, the important thing to keep in mind is that there will be few smoking guns. Witnesses with direct evidence will be silenced, discredited, because you stupid sheeple. Never mind. Or they'll just change their testimony. Clinton will constantly claim it wasn't him. Keep your overview, folks, about these events. Understand that except in the beginning, his name appears on nothing. No money goes directly to him. It's all disappeared. And it's disappeared into the arms for drugs. operations of the Military Intelligence Network and the Central Intelligence Agency, operated and controlled by the secret societies whose headquarters is just 13 blocks from the White House in Washington, D.C. They consist of the Sovereign and Military Order of the Knights of Malta, the Knights Templar, the Supreme Council of the 33rd Degree of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry of the Southern Jurisdiction, B'nai B'rith, the Rosy Cross, and many others. But isn't it remarkable how everyone around Bill Clinton is involved in one dirty deal after another, all intermingled, and how directly or indirectly he and Hillary benefited from them? When Bill first became governor of Arkansas, he and Hillary had no assets whatsoever. Their net worth was basically zero. In college, Hillary was the girl that you wouldn't get caught dead dating. If you don't believe that, just look at a picture of her during those years. Bill Clinton was a poor young man backed by powerful financial interests, backed by the wealthy of the world and the intellectual elite of the universities that he attended. He was given a Rhodes Scholarship. Why? Why did this poor white trash get that kind of backing, and how did he and Hillary, the girl no one would be caught dead on a date with, how did they get to the White House? When Bill first became governor of Arkansas, remember, he and Hillary had no assets. Their net worth was zero. Even with Hillary's law earnings and even with the backing of the elite of the world, Bill Clinton had nothing. They made only a modest salary. And now, only 16 years later, they both are multi-millionaires. And there's no logical way to explain it. No lawyer in Arkansas makes that much money, partner or not. And of course, Bill Clinton's salary was a pittance. Yes, folks, politics can pay. But it's time for the truth about the Clintons to come out in the open, and it's time for them to pay the piper. Clinton and Hillary are going to deny everything that I have said in this series of broadcasts, and that's how he has risen to his position of unbelievable power and money. And so I read directly from a direct challenge made to Bill Clinton by Nick Guarano. And I quote, "Bill, take a lie detector test. Answer the charges that I have brought. I only put two requirements on it. One, that the test be administered by an expert you and I both agree is impartial. And two, that I get to ask the questions. You see, I don't want you to weasel out of it." Unquote. Ladies and gentlemen, if Clinton is innocent, this would prove it to the whole world. But he will never take such a test, nor will he reveal the documents to the public that could also clear him, for they would convict him, and it would show that he is not innocent. It would make him, quote, the impeached president, unquote, and I so dub him now, the impeached president. And I call upon you, Bill Clinton, to step down, do the honorable thing for once in your life, and resign from the presidency. Don't pull the presidency down with you, and don't put any more dirt in the face of the nation. If you don't do this, William Clinton, you will be the first president in American history to be formally removed from office through the impeachment proceedings, and you will go directly from the Oval Office to cell block C. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is not an idle statement. This is based upon over a year of diligent research by many people. Many people. It is based upon interviews with many witnesses, acquaintances, and business partners of Bill and Hillary Clinton. It is based upon revelations made by Arkansas State Police officers and by at least 4 women who have publicly stated, with no gain to themselves, that they have been involved in sexual trysts with William Clinton. The drugs, oh yes, the drugs, lead from Mena, Arkansas to Lassiter to Clinton through the head of his personal bodyguards, who, by the way, is no longer in that position. The investigation into the drugs at Mena, Arkansas was very tightly controlled. Very little of the results of that investigation have ever been made public. Ask Ollie North. I just received a letter from Ollie North wanting me to contribute $2,000 to his political campaign so that he can become the senator of Virginia. And I say to those of you who live in Virginia, if you elect Ollie North, then you are the biggest fools upon the face of this planet. For Bill Clinton might be in the process of destroying the nation, but he's doing it slowly in a method that might allow us to defeat it. Ollie North was preparing a plan to summarily and precipitously suspend the Constitution of the United States of America and declare martial law. He was also involved in selling arms for drugs, the drugs that were brought into this country that are destroying the youth of the nation, that are enslaving many poor people in ghetto neighborhoods, to create the inflated crime rate, to cause the sheeple to scream, to have the guns taken out of the hands of American patriots. Ollie North is a traitor. Find another conservative candidate, another candidate who is truly pledged to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Ollie North is a joke. Bill Clinton is a joke. Hillary Clinton is a joke. And you, the sheeple of the United States of America, unless you change your ways, you are the biggest joke of all. The biggest joke of all time. Of the whole history of the world, of all the fools that have ever lived, none can top the American sheeple, who have it all and are shoveling it away from them just as fast as they possibly can on the promise of some future utopia. Someone once said, "What fools these mortals be." I wonder who said that. Was that Shakespeare? What fools these mortals be. Ladies and gentlemen, form your militia units. To arms. To arms. To arms. To arms. That is what our forefathers gave us. The second article in Amendment 4 was to protect ourselves against a government run amok. And that is exactly what is happening. Constitutional government has not failed us. We have failed it. And the scum has risen directly to the top because we've been asleep all these years, and they are in control. There will be no political resolution. There will be no relief in the courts. Our duty, our responsibilities are clear. And if you haven't got the guts for it, may God have mercy on your soul. And I hope you have the guts to keep your mouth shut when you discover that slavery is no fun. Good night. God bless you. And God